Imagine standing at the crossroads of human connection, where every word spoken to you is not just casual chatter, but a clue, a symbol, a revelation of the hidden self that lies beneath the mask. And in those moments, a single phrase can be the torch that lights your path or the dagger that cuts it. Today, I will show you 5 sentences that, when uttered by a man, should not be overlooked or excused, but recognized as red flags of shadow energies that can entrap your spirit. For the psyche warns us through discomfort long before disaster arrives. Yet how often do we silence that warning voice in the name of love, hope, or the illusion of change? And let's be honest, haven't you laughed off a comment before, only to later realize it was the first sign of something darker? That is the trick of the unconscious. It hides in plain sight. So as we explore these 5 statements, ask yourself, will you heed the whisper of your intuition or gamble with your peace, only to pay the price later? Stay with me, because by the time you recognize the final phrase, you'll understand why walking away is not an act of fear, but the most powerful choice of self-preservation and liberation you can ever make. Words reveal hidden intentions more than actions because language carries the imprint of the unconscious mind in ways that gestures and external behavior often conceal. A person may be capable of controlling their posture, smile, or tone temporarily, but the choice of words they use, especially in unguarded moments, reflects deeper truths that cannot be masked for long. Every phrase is a window into values, beliefs, and character, revealing patterns that the listener must learn to decode. Think of it as symbolic communication. The words chosen are not random, but a direct extension of the inner world, showing whether someone is driven by respect, ego, compassion, or hidden malice. Actions can be rehearsed, polished, or designed to deceive, but words often slip through as unfiltered expressions of reality. When a man says something casually or repeatedly, it is not just sound, it is an admission of his inner framework, his worldview, and the potential future you will experience with him. A person who says words that belittle, undermine, or dismiss is giving you a preview of how your dignity will be treated when comfort replaces effort. Likewise, someone who uses words of respect and accountability is projecting how trust and safety might be sustained. Observing words allows you to bypass illusions because they carry the emotional fingerprints of the speaker. Resentment shows in sarcasm, arrogance hides in overconfidence, and manipulation whispers through half-truths dressed as kindness. If you listen closely, words will reveal contradictions between what someone claims and who they truly are, because no one can indefinitely mask their authentic essence in speech. Consider how an abuser might shower someone with gifts, presenting actions that appear generous, yet their words betray control through phrases like, "You owe me," or "No one else will care for you like I do." The truth lives in the phrasing, not in the gesture. In the same way, a man can perform acts of charm, opening doors, offering attention, sending sweet messages, while his spoken words reveal entitlement, disrespect, or hostility toward others, foreshadowing how he may eventually treat you. Language is a mirror of values, and if you analyze not just what is said, but how it is said, you uncover hidden currents of insecurity, dominance, or authenticity. Even subtle dismissals such as "you're too sensitive" or "you're overreacting" expose an unwillingness to respect your emotions. Words act as symbolic markers, and once you learn to interpret them, you protect yourself from falling into patterns that actions alone might blind you to. This is why great thinkers and psychologists have often taught us to pay attention to language, because words break the surface of the unconscious and carry truths that cannot be concealed indefinitely. A man's repeated words about women, about commitment, about responsibility, about respect, about ambition, all these are not simply statements, but signals of how he views life, relationships, and human worth. A person who frequently uses degrading humor under the guise of playfulness is revealing resentment disguised as lightness. A man who casually dismisses dreams with comments like, "That's impossible" is showing you his limits, not yours. These verbal cues, when noticed, become powerful tools for decision-making, allowing you to align yourself with environments of respect rather than hidden hostility. Words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They echo into memory, shaping the emotional climate of relationships. They plant seeds of either growth or destruction, and what you repeatedly hear will eventually define how you feel, how you think, and how you see yourself. To understand hidden intentions, you must treat language like a compass, guiding you toward people who uplift rather than erode you. Behind every word lies an intention, whether it is to heal, to dominate, to deceive, or to empower, and your responsibility is to listen with depth, beyond the surface charm of actions that may only temporarily distract from the truth. Red flags appear in subtle, repeated phrases because the human psyche reveals itself most authentically through patterns, not isolated incidents. When people speak, they do so not just to communicate ideas, but also to expose fragments of their inner world. And though a single phrase may feel harmless in isolation, its recurrence over time becomes a significant indicator of intention, character, and unspoken belief systems. Most individuals underestimate the power of repetition, brushing off uncomfortable comments with excuses like "he didn't mean it" or "he was just joking," but these repeated words are often the mind's unfiltered confession. They may arrive wrapped in humor, casual dismissal, or even disguised as concern. Yet when you step back and notice the consistency of certain phrases, you realize they are not random slips but deliberate expressions of the subconscious. For example, a man who frequently says "you're overreacting" may at first seem to be calming situations, but in truth, he is training you to doubt your own emotions, teaching you that your natural instincts are invalid. This is not merely language, it is programming, slowly eroding your confidence in your perception of reality. Another might say, "You're lucky I put up with you" in moments of frustration, and though it might sound like a passing remark, its recurrence is an admission of superiority, a seed of contempt that will grow into a toxic tree over time. It is in repetition that the true mask falls away. Anyone can control their words for a short while, but the psyche naturally reverts to its dominant beliefs, spilling them into speech repeatedly until the listener can no longer deny their presence. Consider how advertisements work. By repeating slogans and phrases, they bypass the conscious mind and take root in the subconscious, shaping belief. Similarly, when someone consistently repeats phrases that diminish, control, or belittle, those words slowly carve pathways into your identity, altering how you see yourself without you even realizing. You may begin to internalize those comments, questioning your worth or rationalizing harmful dynamics. This is the danger of subtle red flags. They rarely shout, they whisper, and their repetition makes them deceptively normal. Many people excuse the first instance of a problematic phrase, attributing it to stress, a bad day, or cultural habits. But by the third or fourth time, the pattern is undeniable. It is not circumstance speaking, it is character. Take the phrase, "No one else will love you like I do." On the surface, it can sound romantic, but repeated often, it becomes a trap, a way of instilling fear, suggesting that leaving would lead to abandonment or lovelessness. Another example is "you always" or "you never" statements. You always mess things up. You never listen. Phrases that reduce you to a stereotype and deny the complexity of your humanity. These are not slips of anger. They are repeated attempts to define your identity through someone else's frustration. And when those phrases become the background music of your relationship, they quietly erode self-esteem, leaving you conditioned to accept negativity as truth. Red flags in repeated phrases are not always overtly cruel. Sometimes they arrive in the form of subtle disinterest or detachment. Words like "I don't care," "whatever," or "do what you want" may seem harmless when spoken once, but when they become routine, they reveal apathy, a lack of investment in your feelings and your shared reality. Language has the power to create intimacy or distance, and indifference spoken consistently is a clear message of emotional withdrawal. Similarly, phrases that diminish your achievements, "It's not a big deal, anyone could have done that, you just got lucky," signal envy, insecurity, or refusal to validate your value. These are the shadows hidden in repeated words, and to ignore them is to ignore the warning sirens of the soul. What makes subtle repeated phrases so dangerous is the gradual way they shape your inner world. You may not notice the impact immediately, but over time, these red flags become part of your emotional vocabulary. They dictate the limits of what you tolerate, the definition of what you deserve, and the threshold of how you perceive respect. Psychologists often remind us that people teach us how to treat them, but equally true is that people teach us how they will treat us, through the language they habitually use. When those words are demeaning, controlling, or dismissive, you are being shown in advance the script of your future with them. It is not an accident, it is a preview. This is why listening with awareness is essential. Do not focus only on grand gestures or dramatic outbursts, for those are easier to spot and confront. Instead, pay attention to the ordinary repeated sentences that slip through unguarded moments. When someone is tired, annoyed, joking, or simply speaking without calculation, that is when the shadow self reveals itself most clearly. A person who constantly mocks others under the disguise of humor is not just playful. They are confessing a worldview rooted in ridicule. Someone who repeatedly says, "You can't do it without me," is not just being protective. They are declaring control as the foundation of the relationship. These phrases are not random. They are consistent reflections of inner truth. The urgency in recognizing these red flags cannot be overstated. The longer you normalize harmful words, the deeper their roots embed into your psyche, and the harder it becomes to extract yourself from their influence. Emotional wounds inflicted through repeated language often take longer to heal than visible conflicts because they are subtle, cumulative, and often dismissed by others as not a big deal. Yet for the one experiencing them, they become defining narratives that shape self-worth. Every subtle red flag ignored is a future boundary crossed, a future hurt endured, a future self diminished. This is why awareness must be sharp, why attention must be vigilant, and why you must trust your instincts when words don't feel right, even if actions appear acceptable. The human soul is sensitive to truth. It flinches when disrespect hides inside words. That flinch is your inner compass warning you of danger, but too often we override it with logic, excuses, or misplaced loyalty. To honor yourself means to listen not only with your ears but with your intuition, reading between the lines, noticing what is repeated, and asking what it reveals. Red flags are rarely neon signs. They are quiet echoes that grow louder with repetition until you either heed them or get consumed by them. The courage lies in recognizing them early, while they are still subtle, and making the choice to walk away before they shape your reality beyond repair. Protecting peace means trusting intuition, because the inner voice that stirs within you is not a random feeling or fleeting emotion, but the distilled wisdom of your subconscious, your lived experiences, and the deeper intelligence that observes what your conscious mind may overlook. Too often, people abandon their own intuition in favor of external opinions, social expectations, or the persuasive charm of others, only to find themselves trapped in relationships or situations that erode their inner harmony. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict. It is a state of alignment where your values, emotions, and environment are in balance, and intuition is the compass that guides you toward preserving that alignment. Every time you ignore that quiet nudge in your gut, you open the door for chaos to enter, because intuition is the first line of defense, alerting you before your rational mind gathers enough evidence to understand why something feels wrong. For instance, you may meet someone whose actions appear polite, whose words sound convincing, yet something in their tone, timing, or energy unsettles you. That discomfort is not paranoia. It is a signal from your intuition that your peace is under threat. Trusting intuition requires courage, because it often pushes you to make decisions that others may not understand. Walking away from a relationship, declining an opportunity, or confronting dishonesty may seem irrational to outsiders who only see the surface, but your intuition perceives layers they cannot see. Protecting peace demands prioritizing your inner knowing over external validation, because no one else feels the weight of your unease the way you do. When you silence your intuition, you compromise your peace, and compromise repeated becomes a lifestyle of unrest. Many people stay in environments that chip away at their dignity simply because they want proof before acting, but proof usually comes too late, after the damage is already done. Intuition spares you from waiting for scars to confirm what your spirit already knows. The beauty of intuition lies in its subtlety. It rarely shouts. Instead, it whispers through feelings of tension, unease, or sudden clarity. You may not have all the logical reasons to explain why you feel unsettled, but protecting your peace means honoring that feeling without needing external justification. For example, if someone's repeated words leave you feeling diminished even though their actions seem generous, intuition urges you to question the disconnect. If a conversation consistently leaves you drained or restless, intuition tells you that your peace is at risk. These moments of internal warning are sacred. They are invitations to act in self-preservation. To disregard them is to betray yourself, and betrayal of self is the deepest wound one can endure. Trusting intuition also builds resilience. The more you listen to it, the sharper it becomes, guiding you with increasing clarity. At first, you may doubt it, second-guessing whether it is fear or instinct, but over time, as you notice the accuracy of its warnings, you gain confidence in its authority. This confidence allows you to establish firmer boundaries, to say no without guilt, and to walk away without explanation. Peace becomes your standard, not your luxury, because you know that anything threatening it is unworthy of your time or energy. The world may tell you that compromise is necessary for love, for success, for belonging, but your intuition reminds you that compromise without balance is simply surrendering your peace to someone else's agenda. Protecting peace requires discernment, and discernment begins with trust in the signals that arise within you. There will always be voices around you urging you to ignore your intuition. Friends saying, "He's not that bad." Society telling you, "Give it more time," or your own rational mind insisting you're overthinking. But peace is personal, and no one else has the authority to decide how much unease you should tolerate. When you override intuition to please others, you sacrifice your own well-being for their comfort, and the cost of that sacrifice is often long-lasting turmoil. Protecting peace means refusing to let external noise drown out the inner voice that knows what feels safe, respectful, and true. Your intuition is not flawed. It is finely tuned to protect your essence, and every time you honor it, you affirm your worth. Peace cannot coexist with constant doubt, manipulation, or fear, and intuition helps you detect these forces early. Think of it as an alarm system for your soul, warning you when boundaries are crossed, when energy feels draining, when words do not match actions. By trusting it, you remove yourself from situations before they escalate into patterns of pain. You do not need dramatic proof of betrayal to validate what you already feel. The unease itself is enough to justify action. This is not weakness but wisdom, because protecting peace is about prevention, not reaction. When you wait for undeniable evidence, you endure unnecessary suffering, but when you trust your intuition, you safeguard your serenity before it is fractured. Ultimately, protecting peace by trusting intuition transforms your relationships and decisions. You no longer chase validation or settle for environments that drain you. Instead, you cultivate spaces where your spirit feels calm, respected, and free. You begin to attract people who honor your boundaries, because your energy no longer entertains those who disturb your equilibrium. Trusting intuition does not mean living in fear or suspicion. It means living in alignment, honoring the signals that guide you away from chaos and toward peace. Peace becomes your compass, intuition becomes your guide, and together they form the foundation of a life that is whole, dignified, and unshaken. Walking away is strength, not weakness, because it requires immense courage to detach from what no longer serves your growth, even when every part of you craves comfort, familiarity, or the illusion of security. Society often glorifies endurance, telling us that staying through suffering proves loyalty, resilience, or love. But in reality, staying in environments that diminish you drains your spirit and fractures your identity. Walking away is not an act of fear or avoidance. It is an act of conscious self-preservation, a declaration that your peace, dignity, and self-worth are worth more than the approval of others. Weakness is settling for less than you deserve. Strength is choosing yourself, even when that choice is difficult, lonely, or misunderstood. There is a misconception that leaving means giving up, but in truth, walking away demonstrates clarity of vision. It reveals that you have the wisdom to see through illusions and the determination to protect your future. Anyone can stay bound to toxic cycles. It takes real power to break free from them. When you walk away, you are not fleeing, you are taking control, refusing to allow someone else's actions or words to dictate your destiny. It is an act of reclaiming power, of affirming that your life belongs to you, not to someone who devalues it. Strength is revealed in silence, in the ability to leave without dramatic justification, because you no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your worth. Walking away teaches you that your boundaries are non-negotiable, that your heart deserves protection, and that your soul deserves peace. People may label you cold, unkind, or selfish, but their judgments cannot outweigh the truth that staying in destructive situations only leads to further erosion of self. True strength is not about holding on, it is about knowing when to let go before you lose yourself entirely. Walking away also requires trust. Trust in yourself, in your intuition, and in the belief that something better awaits beyond the present pain. This trust is not blind optimism, it is the quiet recognition that life expands when you release what is shrinking you. Every time you choose to walk away, you are teaching yourself that endings are not failures, but beginnings, and that closing one chapter opens the possibility for a story aligned with your true worth. Weakness clings to what is familiar because it fears the unknown. Strength embraces the unknown because it values peace over predictability. In relationships, walking away is often the ultimate test of self-love. It means refusing to tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or neglect, even if love once existed. It acknowledges that love without respect is bondage, not partnership. Similarly, in friendships or careers, walking away shows you honor your own potential, refusing to remain in spaces where your growth is stunted or your value dismissed. It is not about burning bridges, but about recognizing that some bridges lead only to suffering, and choosing not to cross them is wisdom, not weakness. The emotional strength required to walk away is immense because it often involves leaving behind dreams, memories, or hopes you once held dear. But clinging to illusions only deepens disappointment, while walking away creates space for truth. It is a reminder that strength is not measured by how much pain you can endure, but by how much self-respect you can preserve. Every step away from what harms you is a step toward reclaiming your identity, rebuilding your spirit, and redefining your future. Walking away is strength because it prioritizes long-term healing over short-term comfort. Weakness seeks temporary relief by staying in the familiar, even when it is harmful, but strength envisions a life beyond the present struggle, a life where peace outweighs chaos. This vision drives you forward, giving you resilience to face loneliness, misunderstanding, or fear of starting over. Each time you walk away, You strengthen the foundation of your character, proving to yourself that you are not bound by circumstances, but empowered by choice. It is easy to mistake endurance for loyalty, but true loyalty begins with yourself. Walking away ensures that you do not abandon your own needs while trying to meet the demands of others. It affirms that your life is too valuable to waste in spaces that do not honor it. Weakness says, "I cannot live without this." Strength says, "I will not live without peace." In this declaration lies the true power of walking away, for it transforms endings into liberation and wounds into wisdom. Ultimately, walking away is strength because it reflects mastery over attachment, ego, and fear. It is the silent but powerful act of choosing freedom over bondage, clarity over confusion, and peace over chaos. It is not weakness to release what breaks you. Weakness is clinging to it in the hope that it might change. Strength is the decision to walk away, not because you have nothing left to give, but because you have finally realized your worth and will no longer settle for less than you deserve.